Welcome to the Embrace Her Legacy podcast, the #1 personal development classroom for millennial women, hosted by Embrace Her Legacy founder and CEO, Maria I. Melendez. Ladies, get ready to evoke your feminine confidence and be inspired to master your relationship with yourself so you can fabulously live your legacy. If you enjoy this podcast, please make sure to subscribe. Don't forget to visit us at embraceherlegacy.com, where you can support our mission by making a donation of any amount or sign up to become part of our community of volunteers and supporters, the Embrace Her Legacy Collective. Our vision is for every woman and every girl to defeat her inner saboteur, master her relationship with self, and live out her legacy unapologetically. Enjoy the podcast.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the Embrace Her Legacy podcast, the #1 personal development classroom for millennial women of color. And today, this episode is so special because I'm talking to somebody I considered like Rashana has served as like a mentor. Let me get your life together for me for the last almost 10 years. Rashana, you know we met in like 2009. 2010.
Wow.
Right?
That's
That's
long.
crazy. I
Wow.
know. So let me introduce her. The name of the episode is What I Wish I Knew in My 20s. And the only person I wanted to talk to was Rashana Hooks. She is a life and luxury enthusiast. But to me, when I met you, Rashana, I was in my 20s and I just shared. You told me things in my 20s that I carry with me today. And I wanted to do this episode because I feel like your 20s are very tricky. Mm-hmm. It's like you think because you've been, in school and now you feel like, okay, I've graduated school or I'm now becoming a young woman, I'm traveling, I'm my first job. You think that, okay, now I've made it. Now life, this is I'm growing. And it's like your life has literally just begun. And like the meaty, weighty ups and downs that you're going to experience in your 20s, they're different. It's dynamic. And I feel like it's the point where you start to really become a woman, and it sets the foundation for the rest of your life, your 30s, your 40s, your 50s. But there were things that you told me in my 20s that I was just like, I wish there are things that you told me, and there are things that I'm learning now that I wish somebody would have told me about being in my 20s. So Rashana, I'd like you to introduce yourself to the world, to the people, let them know about you, who you are, what you do.
Well, first of all, thank you for that warm introduction. I am like, I can't take all that credit, but thank you. I'm so happy to be here. Happy Friday to you. First of all, I can't believe it's been probably a little bit more than 10 years since we met. And as I thought about this topic, I had to really stop, honestly, because I had to think about it. I said, woof, that was what, over 20-some years ago. Let me think about that. So, and that just kind of reminded me, and it speaks to sort of, what I continue and try to be, and that is a sharer of life lessons. And when I, as I call myself, life and luxury enthusiast, is because I truly, truly believe that if life is a luxury, period, and it is the lessons that you learn in them and the continued development process of oneself is the true meaning of life. We will always be learning. We should always be striving to grow and be better. So, and that in itself, I deem a luxury. And you'll kind of hear that term. I'll drop that here and there, because when, luxury is not, for me, it's not just from a material standpoint, right? It's not all the fabulous, luxurious experiences, so to speak, that are tied to a monetary factor. But for me, it is more about the essence and the value in life, and the lessons that it gives you, and how that helps you grow and be a better person. So that's me. That's how I'm introducing myself. Life and luxury enthusiast, and here to share that lesson, um, specifically to young women, because I think we owe it to ourselves. We owe it to those who are going to come um, after us, to help them, um, you know, live their best life, so to speak. I know that sounds cliche, but live their best luxurious life in that sense, because I've always felt that the more you know, and sometimes the more you know, sometimes it can be a gift and a curse, but I feel that if we were more honest with each other, then I think a lot of our quote unquote problems could be avoided.
Mm, amen.
Yeah, I think because a lot of times, a lot of our problems are based on expectations,
Mhm.
fantasies, and we get caught up in that, and then we realize later on that's not actually true, right? So you kind of, it's like hindsight, it's 2020, so to speak. So that's what I hope that I can contribute to the world, and so in a very candid and honest space. And when I say that, it's that it's not always going to be pretty. It's not always going to be wrapped in a bow. I like to show, the good and the bad in everything, because there is good and bad in everything. And I think if we avoid the bad, or or bad in a sense of what might be uncomfortable, then we do ourselves a disservice and we're not growing.
Now you see why I called on her, Sean. She already dropped 4 gems. Okay, we didn't even really get really started. So, just to give the audience context about how Rashana and I met, and this is why it's important for women in their 20s that are listening, that when you see another woman who something something stands out about her. I remember we were in the beauty salon, and it was a Saturday, and I remember Rashana being on her laptop, just typing and smiling away. And something said, talk to her. And I was just like, let me just talk to her. Let me introduce myself. And I introduced myself to you and find out, we had like, you weren't all, and I was in entertainment. I was in the music industry back at the team. Were you at A&E at the time? Were you?
So
Okay. All right. So
yes.
yeah. So you were, you were in television and I was in music. So I was like, oh, we should connect. And we went out to dinner a couple weeks after that, and the rest was kind of history. It was like, it's beautiful, because like I think one of the things in my 20s that I was good at, that I pray a listener is listening to, I wasn't afraid to admit what I didn't know. And I was willing to seek and ask for help. And Rashana, you were one of those people who told me, like I said, lessons that I carry with me today. And I'm gonna see if you remember this one, because I want you to share if you remember. And I think I was talking about being young and working hard and how it was hard in my career. And you said, Maria, you want to pay your dues. Remember, you got to pay your dues. You're young, you're just starting in careers, but you want to keep the receipt. Do you remember telling me that?
I do.
Can you tell the audience what that means about paying your dues and keeping the receipt?
Whew, you just gave me chills. Woo, girl, take that back. Wow. That meant, because so in your 20s, yes, I'm a firm believer of paying your dues. And in that respect, it is, learning, you know, I, if you want to sound the proverbial starting from the top, work your way up, or however you want to say that. But there's gems in that. There's a reason for that. So it's like kind of paying your dues and, learning each step of the way. I don't believe in shortcuts. You know so that's what I mean by paying your dues. Learning it from soup to nuts, whatever you're doing, learning it from the bottom to the top and all the in-betweens. But keep your receipts is because that is what you're going to sort of show when you no longer need to do that, because there's going to be a time when you're no longer need to do that. But guess what? No one's going to tell you that. No one's going to say, you don't need to do that no more. No one's going to tell you, actually, you did that already. Do this. No one's going to tell you that. You're going to have to do that for yourself. And sometimes that's not going to be an easy conversation, because, yeah, people will undervalue you. People will, or when I say people, I'm talking about the proverbial, whether it's organizations, companies, however, and you need to remind people or said people that no, I've been there, done that, proven, that this is your record keeping, so to speak, because you're going to have to be your own advocate. You're going to have to be the one to say, no, I know my worth. I know what I bring to the table. I know what I'm going to deliver. So I don't need to do XYZ. I don't need to do that. And that's what I mean about keeping your receipts, because your receipts are yours. The operative word is yours. No one is going to know your value better than yourself. So, I hope that is going to continue to carry you forever. And I even still have to remind myself of my receipts, because sometimes, and I'm being honest here, because there are some, and this is not to be confused with I'm above anything. That's not what I'm saying. You're never above. You're never too good to roll up your sleeves or do what needs to be done. I am not saying that. What I am saying is that you have to understand your value and what your position is, what the expectation is, and how the respect that you need to be demanding to hold for the work that you've already put in, for the work that you've done. That is what I mean by that's your receipt. That's like, what did the kids say? Put respect on my name.
Yeah.
That's what they say. I'm trying to keep up. Yes. Put respect on my name.
Put respect on my name. Rashana, I love that. And I think what you're trying to say is there's going to be a time, like you already hinted, that you're going to have to speak up for yourself. Mm-hmm. And those receipts are part of you advocating and speaking up for yourself. Mm-hmm. In my 20s, especially in my career, I was insecure. And I'm pretty sure there are listeners who it's hard and it's scary, because you're in an environment where people have been doing what they're doing for 10, 20, 30, 40 more years longer than you. Mm-hmm. And in those moments where you do want to speak up, that inner saboteur voice is like telling you why you can't. What advice do you give to women in their 20s who now have gathered some receipts and now want to speak up from themselves, whether it's in work, in relationships, however? How do they find the power in exercising, asking for what they really want and being honest with themselves?
Still in their 20s? Are we talking about they're still in their
20s? Still in their 20s.
Use your voice. And confidence, what I've learned about confidence comes with experience. Mm. That is the secret, if you want to call it the secret to success. The secret to success is confidence. That's all it is. It's not that you may not necessarily be smarter. That person may not be smarter than you. right? They just, the confidence level might be on a different point scale. Um, but what I learned is that it's the experience. So if you feel confident enough to voice or express your opinion, then I would encourage you to do so. Now, if you don't feel confident enough, for whatever reason, I say do it anyway, because that is the only way you'll gain the confidence. You just have to do it. Um, w- and also another sort of point of confidence is that for me, what I struggled with was the fear of failure. I was so concerned about being perfect, so concerned about doing it right or knowing the answer, that I paralyzed myself. I didn't say anything. So that's also a cautionary tale as well. Um, to still, do it, of course, be smart about it. But even if you don't have all the answers, still speak up, still voice your opinion, because whether you're right or wrong, so to speak, there's a lesson. There will be a lesson, and you will know for next time. And because you spoke up, even when you were scared, it's just a stepping stone. You'll do it again. And the more you do it, the more confidence you'll bring. So the headline here is, you just have to do it. You have to start somewhere. That's the only way you're going to get the confidence. So just think of it as, if you feel scared, if you feel insecure about it, just fight through that fear, push through, and just do it. I guarantee you, you will feel better. I guarantee you'll feel good just because you did it. You wouldn't be even so concerned about the outcome. You would, whatever the answer is, or whatever the result, I think you'll be so proud of yourself for just doing it, that it'll mean much more to you than the result that you were actually looking for.
Yes, I totally agree. So, Rashana, what do you think was the biggest misconception you had about your 20s?
I would say, because I would say the biggest misconception I had was that I had to have it. I had to have know it all. I had to actually know it all, be all, do it all. um, and that's just, where did that even come from? Like, I'm really still trying to find the source of that information, first of all, because it's ridiculous. That was my biggest misconception of, the 20s, and the unnecessary pressure to follow that sort of path that was just unrealistic. It just didn't make sense. And I think a part of that also had a lot to do with, historically, right? So if you kind of think about, if at least of my generation, you know, it's like, you grew up with your mothers or your aunts, and right, and you kind of think about how old were they when they did XYZ, right? So you sort of, like, that's sort of like your guidebook, and you're like, well, I'm not there, or I didn't, so you naturally compare. But what we forget was that times were so different. The opportunities that we have are so different. And it is, and it's, and as you know, what the reality is, as women, we're not really taught to really think on our own. In a sense, we're not really enough. I can't say, I'm not going to speak in generally, but a lot of times we're not encouraged or reminded that we need to follow our own path, and what our heart desires, and what we want to do, and we understand that it might not look like something else or somebody else. And we're in our 20s, we're still sort of, I would say, impressionable, so to speak. We
Mm-hmm.
are still impressionable at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, back to the confidence though. We're still, we could be swayed a little bit in our 20s. So that's why you have to that's why this information in this podcast, which I applaud you for, is important to have, because it's useful, and it's a reminder that now is your time. The 20s is your time. The 20s is your selfish time. And when I always be selfish, please be selfish. Please be selfish with every and anything. You will never get these 20s back. The 20s are, if I loved my 20s, by the way, but like this is the most, I would say your 20s are probably the best years of your life. The best, and we can go into all those reasons, but it is one of the best years of your life, hands down.
I love that, Rashana. I think one of the and when you said I felt like I had to have it all together by my 20s, I was over here nodding my head because I felt the same way. I was under the misconception that by the time I was 30, it was going to look like this. I was going to have X, Y, Z, 1, 2, 3. And when that didn't happen, again, to your point of comparison, whether it's in generations past or even maybe your peers, I started to internalize, well, what's wrong with me? When in actuality, there's nothing wrong with you. Everyone's paths looks different. And I want someone listening in her 20s to understand there is a real good chance that your 30 and your 29 is not going to look the way you expected it to look. I think that we have this misconception that by the time we're 29, 30, I thought I was going to be on the cover of Forbes. I thought I was going to be, married with 2 children and a white picket fence. I thought I was going to be a millionaire. I thought by the time I'm 30, I'm going to have that luxury lifestyle that Rashana tells me I can have. But when it didn't happen and it didn't look like that, I was so disappointed. So in your 20s, I want to encourage people to manage your expectations of what to expect, especially in the area of your finances. What I've learned, and I'm pretty sure, and I've even did some research behind this, most people don't reach their financial peak until they're 40.
Yes,
exactly. And it's just nobody's telling us that, because we've been taught to believe that you're going to go to school, you're going to work hard, you're going to get a good job, but they don't tell you, oh, you're going to be paying back student loans. Oh, you're how to get your credit together. So there's this misconception that by the time you're 25, it's supposed to look like this. And another thing I want to encourage someone listening, when I did well for myself in my 20s financially, which is why I was able to jump ship and start my own business. When everyone else was booking vacations, I was throwing that money in savings accounts, right? Because again, I had surrounded myself with mentors and women who were like, read this book, do this with your money. Like, I was asking questions because I didn't know what to do with that money. And I remember being judgmental of my peers because they had not reached a level of quote unquote financial and career success that I had. By the time I was 25, I had what people would want when they're 35, right? So I would say that to someone who's like a go-getter, maybe like me, and you're out here like, well, I'm dating, so why isn't he making what I'm making? And like most 24-year-olds are not making that, honey. Be realistic on your managing your expectations of yourself and your peers and others, and not to be judgmental, because everyone's path will look different. Now, talking about relationships, Rashana, there was another nugget. We're gonna go there. There's another nugget Rashana gave me. I will never forget. I was about 27, 28 years old. I think me and you, I don't know if we were at lunch, dinner, one of our
many of them,
right? Lunch, dinner, or something. And I was dating someone. I was in a relationship with that person for a very long time, almost 10 years. I did a whole bid, right? Wow. And you told me something, and you were like, we were talking about goals, and I was like, yeah, I want to get married. And you were like, Maria, how old are you again? I was like, 28. And you were like, you said something, you said, turn 30 first. Sit on that. Then come back and tell me if you want to be married. And I was low-key mad at you. I was like, what is Rashana talking about? I was like, I'm ready. And the thing is, I was so close to 30. It wasn't like you were telling me that and I was 21. I was literally, I'm almost certain I was 28 when you told me that. And you was like, Maria, turn 30 first. Then we can talk about marriage. Rashana, let's fast forward 2-3 years. When I don't know what happens between the ages of about 29 to 32. Like, it's the awakening. Like, life started happening. You know, me and him started, like, we broke up, like, just everything. And then I started my healing process in my 30s from all the stuff in my 20s. And all I heard was your voice. And I said, if Rashana never told me anything good, she told me that. And that was the best piece of advice. Now, I'm not encouraging anybody listening to not get married before 30, right?
Right.
But you knew something, and you were not the only woman in her 30s at the time when I said that you would always tell me, Maria, turn 30 first. Then let's revisit that conversation about marriage and children. And now I totally get it. And I think I even told you this after. I said, girl, I'd have been divorced. I would have been divorced by myself. And there's nothing wrong with being divorced. But the thing about it is, I just wasn't emotionally, mentally, financially. I would have sabotaged everything if I would have got it before 30. So share your thoughts on why you told me that. Like, why, like, you were like, just wait. Share your thoughts on, like, on the benefits. Because and I don't know if you want to share, but I know you've waited. So I'll just, like, share the thoughts of waiting for that later on.
So first, I would tell you, someone told me that, a woman told me that, and I, like you, was probably close to 30. I was like maybe 20. I was in my late 20. I was over 25. I tell you that, and I was low key mad at her too. I was like, "Who are you? You don't know me. You don't know my relationship, my boo, da, da, da." All of that, girl, all of that, and something happened between 28, 29. It was like a shift. It was almost like this, like, shift for me. And it completely changed who I thought I knew I was to be. And mind you, the guy, so my now husband, he was still my boyfriend at the time. To be clear, the love was not lost. It wasn't like a loss of love, or I was like, oh, I don't want to be with you anymore. No, that's not it. And I think that's something that I also want to make very clear. When I tell women do not get married before 30, it is because women especially don't really understand the level of giving that you do in a marriage, and providing. And it's funny, I don't know, always my favorite quote, and we can bring it back here. This is my favorite quote by, I believe it was Phaedra from the Real Housewives of Atlanta. And she said, the only woman looking for a husband is one who's never had one. So I'm going to leave that there. We'll come back to that. So, but I say that because as women, we get so caught up, and I'm saying we women because I was her. It used to be me. We see the fantasy. I don't want to say the fantasy, but the fabulous side of marriage, the dress, the wedding itself, the party, the ring, the envy from your girls, the social status that it brings, all of the fabulous things. What we don't see is the level of giving and compromising and the maturity level. And I really want to talk about the maturity level that one must bring to the table when it comes to marriage. And that maturity level is always growing, but it has to start at a really good level.
Mm.
It has to start at a really good level. It's always going to increase. It should be increasing. Okay. But it has to start at a good level. And I strongly believe that as women, we need, in order to get to that maturity level, we need to get out of our 20s
Mm.
for lots of reasons. One, because your 20s are for you. Do not give up your 20s. Your 20s are for exploring who you are, what you like, what you don't like. Um, if you are lucky enough to have some disposable income or some money, some extra money, go on those trips with your girls, go on the trips by yourself. If you want to spend your money on who, spend your money, even, do it in a smart way, but even splurge a little bit, right? Like, still have your savings, but still splurge. Take the trip. If you want to buy that bag, buy that bag. Like, do it all. In and even as you enter in your 30s, I would even say, even your early 30s, like when I say early 30s, even like your 31, 32,
Mhm.
like, I still have like the last hurrah. Like, I would kind of stretch it out long as you can. I didn't get married till I was 35. Okay.
Mm.
And I think that I actually think that was a good level for me.
Mhm.
um for a lot of reasons, and also because as women, you also want to, and I'm speaking from an ambitious women, like women who are type A, probably like me, and ambitious, and have their careers, because you also want to give your career a chance too.
Mhm.
Find your place in your space, and establish yourself, so you are standing on your own, and anything else that comes into your life is complements you,
Mhm.
right? Or it elevates you, right? You kind of the elevation. So you also want to give yourself space and time to do that, because that's going to be very important in a partnership. When you start talking about marriage and you start talking about that partnership, right? Like that, you need to be you. You shouldn't be trying to figure yourself out. Don't you shouldn't be don't try to figure yourself out after the fact. No, you need to come to the table with who you are, and who you're and grow and continue to grow and build on whoever that person is. Um so I personally don't I'm a I think marriage is a beautiful thing. Don't get it twisted. I think marriage is, you know, a beautiful thing in terms of, to have a partner who, or someone who, you love, you can count on, good, bad, all the things. I think that is wonderful. And I also think if one wants to have children, I think that is a beautiful thing too.
Mhm.
Now, if you don't want to have children, I don't know. I can go if I don't know about the marriage thing if you don't want to have children. But um I'm a supporter of marriage. That's what I'm trying to say. I am married. So I support that. However, don't believe it should be done before 30. I will give you the side eye if you come to me and you tell me you're getting married before you're 30, because my answer to you would be why?
Mm.
Why? Just why? And why? You have so much time to do that. Why?
Oh my. And I'll tell you, and
I'm
it's going
side-eyeing
to
you.
hurt. And it's gonna hurt. Like
It's gonna hurt.
tell you, the things, the woman in my life, my like circle of mentors that I had, including you and other women, the things y'all would tell me, I'd be in my whole feelings. I'm like, what is she talking about? And like, girl, you don't know life. And then the thing about it is, Rashana, it's not like I was 28 and you were 47. Like, you had to be maybe like 34, 35,
Yes.
you were not that far away from me. I was like, what is she talking about? Child, listen to the woman who, sometimes you may not like what they're saying, but they are wise. They have something to say, and you might want to listen to it. Now, you talked about splurging, right?
Mhm.
And doing this and traveling. What were some of your most important financial lessons of your 20s?
Ooh. Well, my dad actually really instilled in me very young. I probably was like when I got my first like job, summer youth job, remember back in the day. And about saving. So I always was like a natural saver. I would save as much as I can, but still splurge. I would still splurge. But I think I was able to splurge because I had some savings, right? So it's kind of goes hand in hand. Um, so I think um, saving in a way that works for you, whether that's systematically, like I remember I would have the money come out of, I set it up where when I got paid, it already came out of my paycheck. So I already, kind of told them, split it up, put it in the savings account. So whatever, you pay me, that's what it is. System sort of worked for me, but I think that was sort of in my 20s. That was the best thing because to be quite honest with you, I'm probably still sitting on some savings from 20.
Wow. Rashana, can you share with the audience if you want to share how old are you?
I am 42 years old.
Okay.
42.
And she said, I'm sitting on, girl,
I'm
if
still
that don't deserve a round of applause.
Still sitting on money that I saved in my 20s. Still
Wow.
sitting on that. Yeah. So the beauty about savings is that it also go, I mean, it's meant to um grow, and it's meant to sort of cushion you throughout the years. So in whatever you save in your 20s, 9 times out of 10 you'll still have some of that money when you're 30 and when you're 40. And that's the beauty of savings. It grows with you, that right along with you. So continue, I would say, as much as you can save, and because when you're 20, you're not married, so you don't gotta share your money. There's no, your bills should really be low. You really should not have a lot of bills, honestly, at 20, outside if you may have a student loan or etc., or any type of necessities, but you really shouldn't have any overhead built. And that's something that I would also sort of recommend. Always try to minimize your overhead in terms of your bills. I've always tried to do that, even 20, 30, 40. I try not to have a lot of things. I personally hate monthly bills. I hate paying anything monthly. That's just a big thing. But that's something that I would also recommend for your 20s. Just try to keep your load light, so your money could be yours, truly yours.
That's good. That's good. And you know what? One thing that I did, Rashana, I didn't know anything about money. So I read books. Susie
Mm.
Orman was like my financial coach at 23. So I read books. I
Wow.
tell girls in
See?
their 20s. There's a book by Susie Orman called Young, Broke, and Fabulous, a Young, Fabulous,
Mm.
and Broke.
Yep.
I read that. I would watch her TV shows, and that's how I learned. I learned, all right, you want to invest in your retirement accounts. I learned what an IRA was. You want to invest in that. She talked about different credit cards, and making sure that I got credit cards that didn't have an annual fee. Like
Right.
I think in your 20s, it's really important to become a student of life. Like,
Yeah.
and not like, okay, whatever they didn't teach you in
Yep.
school, you have to now be proactive about learning what you don't know so that you can be successful in life. No one was
Yep.
telling me about credit, debt, savings. I didn't know who Susie Orman came from a mentor that was like, oh, you want to get your money right? Look up this lady, so I think it's, and especially in the digital information age, financially make sure that you are okay. Make sure that you have the money so you can splurge on the bag. I remember the first time I walked into the Gucci store and bought my first Gucci bag like it was nothing. I was like, that's it? Swipe. Like it was, I felt so gross. I was like, what, girl? And I caught it on sale for $900. It was 16, and I remember I caught it on sale for 900.
Wow.
And it was gorgeous. And I was there. I was like, yeah, just swipe. And I walked out that store so happy. But that's because, to your point, I had savings. I had kept my my overhead low, and I knew that it was important for me one day to be an entrepreneur. And I knew that the decisions I made then were going to affect me later down the line. I said, I didn't want to be hostage to a job I didn't like.
Yep.
So I wanted to save my bread. So if I didn't like the job, I could be like, deuces, I'm out.
Yep.
I can save, you
Yep.
know, I can have my savings. And Susie Orman said to have 6 months worth of savings, you know, living expenses savings. And I did that. So make sure you are doing things like that and following people online, getting the tools that you need to make sure that you're okay financially. So on that topic of I guess finances and growing, one of the relationships that will shift the most in your 20s is your relationship with your parents. Girl, and I know that somebody in her 20s thinking, listen, like, oh, you talking about it. Because parents now have to, they stuck between letting you go and letting you be an adult, and there's tension and turmoil. It's like, does she not see I'm grown? So how can someone deal with their parents wanting to still like meddle in their business, meddle in their decisions, all that, while she's like becoming a woman in her 20s?
Ooh, that's a tough question, Maria. Because I'm speaking out of two sides of my mouth here because I am a parent. So
yeah, you're a parent.
I see it. I'm like, okay, I see how that could, you know, how you want to do that, but then also I am also a daughter and I have parents. So, oh, gosh, this is tough. I would say, this is just speaking to someone who's 42 years old, and I still, you know, parent, you will always become, once you're a parent, you're always a parent. Your child could be 30, 40, your mother's just still going to talk to you like you're probably 5 years old or treat you like a child, so to speak. But I think that understanding the dynamics of relationships with your parents will change over time, and it comes in seasons. So in your 20s, as you're still getting to, I feel like in your 20s, you're coming into yourself, right? You're trying to navigate your own identity in the adult space. Right now, it's like, I'm an adult when you make some, your own decisions. And I would say, you know, understand that, you're still respectfully, obviously, be respectful to your parents, but still start training yourself. Use your parent relationship as your, like, the training for confidence.
That's good.
Out for the external world, right? So start speaking up if and telling them, well, maybe I disagree, or here's what I think, or here's what I would like to do, right? So it's respectfully, but I think that's a good training ground for like the challenges you're going to need and the externally in the external world. And just gain that confidence by speaking up. And again, caveat here is, I don't know it. I don't know the situation. Like, every situation is going to be different, right? Like, if you're still, for example, if you might be still financially dependent on your parents, that might be a different conversation, right? So like, you still financially dependent on them, they're still sort of taking care of you, so to speak. You know, you still have a voice. Don't, you know, not saying you have to be mom here, but still have a voice, but just understand the bigger picture, the context of certain things. The more independent you become, the more confidence you'll have, and the more, voice that you could really stand on your own, so to speak. And look, I tell anybody until I would say it's tough because even as for myself, so to speak, my parents still be trying to parent me. And I'm 42 years old. Naturally, they were trying to parent me. Now they got grandkids, so it's like, oh, so
Right.
it's a whole different dynamic, and it doesn't stop. That's the headline. It does not stop.
Good.
It does not.
Good.
So you just have to just learn to just know, once you understand your parents' positioning, you'll just say, okay. Sometimes it's like, okay. Just say, okay.
Okay. And I think too is how you position yourself. I think if you come across whining and like having tantrums like you were 6, your parents are still going to look at you like a child. I like how you said, say something like, I disagree with that, or this is how I feel. Like, kind of like speak and take your emotions out of it. And if you feel that intense emotional situation, like step away and
Mhm.
then come and talk to them,
Yep.
like 2 different people.
Yes.
Um, Another set of relationships that changes a lot in your 20s are your friendships. I
Oh,
know.
yes.
Yeah, right.
Yes. Yeah.
Now, great things to happen. I've met some of my dear good girlfriends in my 20s. And there's some relationships that fizzled out.
Yeah.
So what words of wisdom would you give to women in their 20s in regards to building healthy relationships and releasing friendships that
Wow.
no long, the season has ended?
Wow. That is so real. Another just a point to that, your 20s are for is really for tr-
Mm-hmm.
relationship building. And I, like you, a lot of my good friends to today, I met and invested in my 20s. And luckily, for the most part, I still keep in contact with them. Some of my best friends, actually, one of my best friends, we met, yeah, I was in my 20s. And we've grown, and let me tell you, it is almost like it's like insurance.
Mm.
So what I mean, like friendships are sometimes like insurance, is that you deposit into it, you may not necessarily need that for that moment.
Ooh.
Okay, you may not necessarily, you keep on paying. And when I say pay, you're investing, you're depositing, right? So in my 20s, I made a lot of payments, I made a lot of deposits. From we went to dinners, we were lunch, we went out to drinks, we partied together, we hung, we've had moments, we bonded, we shared all through my 20s and even into my 30s, right? And life changes. You're still going through life changes. So I'll give you an example of and now that so all the deposits I've made
Mhm.
in my 20s and in my 30s, I've really I'm cashing them out a lot of now in my 40s. And when I say cashing them out, is that I may not because life changed. Life is different. Look, I've got kids, we got work, we're busy. I may not talk to you in months. You might not hear from me in months. You're like, where's she at? I don't know. But if I'm in a bind, or if I
Mhm.
need something, or if I need their help, or if something comes up, and it doesn't have to be an emergency. When I say I need something, I'm not saying it's extreme, but it could be anything. Pick up a phone, a text. no questions asked.
Yep.
What you need, done. Because the deposits. Now, I haven't spoken to this person in 6 months. Where you been, girl?
Mm-hmm.
But because those deposits have been made over the years, there's no questions asked. There's nothing. It's fine. You want to cash out now? Cash out. Right? So friendships and relationships in your 20s it's extremely important because you need to deposit in them. Relationships take time to build, they take time to grow. And also there's seasons, right? I feel like, there's one of my old friends would always tell me that there's people in your life for seasons, reasons, and lifetime.
Yep.
It's three things. And you'll grow and you'll see. And especially with women, relationships change, and then some for things that are out of our control, right? There's sometimes people change. You will outgrow some people, and that's okay.
Yep.
So understand that. And I had to learn that just because we have history does not necessarily mean that we need to have a future.
Woo! Say that again.
Right? Because I think that's when we're so sentimental. We hold on. We like, the girl, that's my girl from day one. Da, 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 da. Yeah, but that does not necessarily mean that the paths you've taken are appropriate in a sense where you might not be at that same level, and that's not to say that someone's below your level, or it's not that. It's just that people have different paths. And what you'll find a lot of times is that you'll mistaken it for other things. So you ever like, hang out with a certain person, or you're doing certain things and you're just frustrated. It's either like how they do things, or like you're like, you're like, because things are not at your expectation. They're not just at your frequency, and that's okay. It's just that you're just at a different stage or a different path. So sometimes you just outgrow people, and that's okay. That doesn't mean that you don't speak to them anymore. It just that it doesn't mean that. It just means that that friendship it might look different. And then there's also friendships that will just blossom over the years. It'll still grow no matter how the time passes. You'll still grow. Life will change. You go through different stages. Friendships also go through stages as well. But you also, as you grow, you also know you have to learn to give, just like any relationship, sometimes you have to give people grace. And people, you have to, there's growth, there's patience. And I'm still learning that to this day. I'd be like, whoa. Patience. So, but the beauty of it all is that it's all, again, luxurious life lessons, especially in relationships building, when it comes to friends and sisterhood. Sisterhood is essential, and it's also important. So I would say that in your 20s, build your tribe. Build your tribe, because that you're gonna need that tribe. So build that tribe. Get your girls, or whoever your tribe looks like, but and have that support system, because that's super, super important. Super important.
That is so good, Rashana. You said something that stuck out, that in your 20s, you like are for building relationships. And there are two things that stick out for me personally, like those friendships and, people that you're just having a good time with. You don't know how 5, 10, 15 years down the line, you are going to need these people in various capacities, whether it's professionally, whether it's personally. And it's like, because like you said, you made those deposits years ago. Now it's like, oh, I may need this, I may need that. I have a relationship with this person. You never know when that's going to come back around. So that hit home for me. So I'm just letting you know that y'all might be hanging out, clubbing, eating, drinking, traveling now, whatever. But there are going to be times later down the line that's going to be like, you're going to need some of these people, and these people are going to really be there for you. So it's important to build those relationships. And then professionally, one of the things for me in my 20s, which was difficult, was going to like networking events or industry events, and I would feel so new and alone because I didn't know anyone, right? And then you see everyone just chit chat, hey girl, hey, be chit chattering away. And I just learned, how to build relationships in my 20s. I learned that was something that actually was a skill that the music industry taught me. So I had to just build relationships with people as I went. And now that I am in my 30s, and now that I go to these events, I'm 36, I know I'm, hey girl, hi. You at the event now. You like, hey girl, how you say you? Where you been? Like, it's just like, I'm like, wow, it took 10 years, right? So I say that to say that in your 20s, you are going to be in rooms where you feel like you don't belong, you're the young one, nobody knows you professionally, but build relationships with other women and men in your career. Yes. That is so important. Don't sit back and just like, be too intimidated to introduce yourself, to give someone your business card, to take someone out for lunch, for coffee, for dinner, because those professional relationships, that network is going to follow you for the rest of your life. So that's really important. And speaking of network and professional relationships, one of the things that I did in my 20s was I had some amazing mentors. Y'all didn't know y'all was my mentors. I was just calling out, having dinner and lunch with y'all and asking y'all all the questions I needed to ask. I was like, she's smart, she'll know, let me ask her. What advice do you give to women in their 20s to find peer mentors, sponsors, people who can help them navigate that, luxurious lifestyle that you said?
Yes. I mean, professionally, so many points you just made. So many points. One of the things one of the books I read in my 20s was The Personal Touch by Terry Williams. And at the time I was I was in the height of my like PR career, and she was a PR god. And when I read that book, it sort of spoke to me because naturally my personality is, I'm very social. I'm a social, person, so to speak. So I didn't realize it then, but that was a strength, right? So I didn't realize I was tapping into my strengths of my social skills and personality, that I could, hey, how you doing? Want to go to lunch? So I was always curious, wanted to get to know people or learn about them, or learn from them, to your point, learn from them. And I also, right, if I wanted to learn from somebody, or if I wanted some questions, invite them to coffee.
Yep.
Invite them to lunch. Or cocktails or drinks, right? Like, at the time, we grew up sort of in this entertainment industry. So we were, very social, a very social industry. So drinks and dinner, those were, you needed to kind of do those things to meet people. So I was in my realm, so to speak. But the book also sort of was really about the personal touch. It was really about building those relationships by doing certain things that were just stood out or had that personal touch. So like, if you meet somebody, or someone takes the time out to even answer your phone call, whatever, send them a thank you note. If you can handwrite it, do that. Right? I know we're like in a different space, but people still appreciate, at least myself. If you send me a thank you card, forever in my brain. I'm like, oh my gosh. But even now I get it. Like, or an email, just like saying thank you. You'd be surprised. A lot of people don't even say thank you anymore. Just an email. It takes 2 seconds. Thank you. Thank you for your time. Thank you for this. And building that professional network in terms of, if you see, pay attention. That's another thing. Pay attention. People, so if you're looking of people who you admire, if they're in the trades, if they're in the nudes, if you hear something, share it. LinkedIn's your best for you. Hey, congratulations. Good thing, I saw you in this, right? So it's about that. Because people remember that. People are super busy, but they also remember it. Um, so from a networking professional standpoint, I definitely would say in your 20s, do that often, network your peers. So your peers who if you look to the side next to you, your peers now, please believe that that peer was going to be the head of such and
Yep.
such and such
Yep.
in about like 5 to 10 years, five, maybe sooner than that. And you're going to be like, I remember. So build those relationships. And one of the things that I said was that someone once told me that um the circle, you, even like your interns, whoever your this the circle of life is real. Let me tell you, I've had interns that I've had are now like VPs of like department. So this circle, that person that needed you, you're gonna need them. Best
Yep.
believe you're gonna need them soon. So always treat people with respect. Always, because your brand and your name goes a long way.
Yes.
Build those mentors. And one of the things about mentors, I also want to make a point about. I don't believe in asking anybody to be your mentor. I don't
Yep.
believe in ask. I think mentorships needs to be organic in terms of you have to make sure that you actually like that person. Because a lot of times we admire from afar. We're like, oh, this person is doing this, 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 this. So on paper, they look great, but you meet them in person, you might not like them as a person. And that's not a good relationship. So you need to make sure that your mentor is someone that you admire from a professional standpoint as well as a personal standpoint, that you actually like that person. Not saying you have to be best friends, but you can stomach that person. So mentor, board of advisors, so to speak. So you kind of, and that's a cultivate like a team, so that you could bounce ideas off, you can share information. And what also a lot of people forget that exists is a sponsor. Your sponsor, right? And that sponsor is 9 times out of 10, you might not even know that sponsor. But sometimes the sponsor, you don't know the sponsor. And I would never forget someone told me this. Actually, my mentor told me this. She said, your sponsor will likely be the person, you don't know that person, but that person knows you. And that's why your brand and your name and your reputation needs to be on point. And I didn't get it until probably a couple of years ago when I was in a situation where I I was doing my thing, doing the work, so to speak. When you get the doing the work, I was doing the work and doing this. And this particular woman, I didn't know she was my sponsor, but she was a sponsor. And she would always drop like little notes to me. She would say, oh, sorry, sorry I couldn't make the meeting, but uh I love what you're doing. And that's it. But she was so high up. She was like, I didn't even expect her to come to the meeting. I was like, girl, you ain't got time. And when it came down to, I never forget, our companies were making some changes. And she, on my behalf, unbeknownst to me, had basically said, I need her to do XYZ. I need her to be put here. Now, mind you, I'm in a room. I wasn't in the room, but she spoke on my behalf because of the work I was doing. So she'd been watching this whole time. So when an opportunity presented itself, she basically demanded that I be that person and I get that job because of the work that I was already doing. And mind you, never had a conversation, never really had a relationship. We didn't have a relationship in the sense where we only knew each other in passing. I knew her as a head of a department. She was the highest up. She knew clearly who I was, but I was just doing the work. I was minding my business, doing the work, and she spoke on my behalf for an opportunity that I wanted, and I didn't even know it.
Wow.
So that's what a sponsor does for you. So you have to make sure that you have cultivate your mentors, cultivate your board of advisors, but also know that there's a sponsor also out there too. And that sponsor is only, you may not know it. You may 9 times out of 10, you probably won't know who the person is, but the rule of thumb is do the work.
Yep.
And your sponsor will show up.
I love that, Rashana. And I love how you said, sometimes you won't know your sponsors. I love how you said, not believing in asking people to be your mentors. The woman that I have surrounded myself, you included, with, who were women who had already, had some experience in career, life, relationships. To me, y'all were just like, I just want to, I don't even want to call you like my board of advisors. It was just like this fabulous group of women that I knew who to call on for what. And it was never like, oh, let me ask her to be my mentor. It's like, I'm just, girl, can we just go grab some lunch? And you come with your questions ready, you take it back, you apply, and then you report back. You say, oh girl, this is what, let me update you and let me say this. So sometimes I think there's a lot of pressure on that formal mentor-mentee relationship, which is fine if that's what you want, but also just look at people in your life and see like, all right, I like what she's doing. I want to learn more about that. Well, you know what? I don't know about my finances. How can I sit down with someone, ask questions about what books to read, what channels to watch, all those type of things. And one question, I have 2 more questions. I know we are pressed for time. 2 more questions, because I felt like somebody's probably going through this, and a lot of people do. The career shift in your 20s. What advice do you give to someone who wants to change their career in the 20s? Like the career they went to school for and they started is now not the career that they want to continue pursuing.
Do it. Just do it. Career. Just shift. Like, do it. Don't even think twice about it. Do it. I probably switched my career 5 times.
And I love that. I switched my career. I was in music and entertainment, and now, girl, let me tell you, just do it. And I will say this, Rashana, the earlier you do it, the better. Before you have a mortgage and a husband and kids, do it now. Do it now.
Do it. Switch. I mean, look, I switched to literally about 5 or 6 times. I would jump PR, marketing, sales. Like I mean, did it all. Figure it out. That's what your 20s are for. Figure it out. 20s are not 20. Don't be loyal in your 20s. There's no loyalty. There's no loyalty in your 20s. Like, please believe that, especially not to a company or an organization or a career. Like, jump ship, figure it out, do you, because that's the only way you're going to learn and you're going to grow. And trust me, your time will come. You'll figure it out. You'll figure out what works for you, what doesn't work for you, what you're good at. But you got to kiss a lot of frogs. You got to go through a lot. You got to fall. You got to fall. It's part of the process. It's part of the process. And don't be afraid. Do it. Don't hold on to an idea of what something should be. Let it go. Let it all go. We all trying to because trust me, everybody's trying to figure it out. If I had to be furtherly honest, I didn't truly, really figure out. I don't want to say figure out. Really say this is where I want to hang my hat until probably 39, 38.
Look at that.
Where I said, okay, I'll hang my hat right. I'm gonna hang my hat on this.
Right here. Look at
right
that.
Here. And and that's where I want to hang my hat. Now say, okay, this is my lane. This is where I'm gonna go with it. I'm gonna hang my hat right there. And you'll get there. You will get there. Just trust.
Now, my final question for you, Rashana. And when you said there was a book I read, I said, I hope it's this book. There was a book you told me to read. Let me tell you, I listened, Rashana. I listened to
girl. You took
listen. I get an A. I get an A in the
Get
class.
an A plus.
Okay.
Get an A
You
plus.
said, Maria, pick up this book. Nice Girls Don't Get the Corner Office.
Oh my
God. And
God.
I created a whole curriculum from that book that I teach my girls. So now I gotta ask you, Rashana,
Wow.
any books
Wow.
that you would recommend women in their 20s read?
Wow, you really took notes.
Rashana, I was trying to live luxurious.
Oh yes, girl, yes. Okay, yes. Well, The Personal Touch, I would say, read by Terry Williams. Nice Girl, Don't Get the Corner Office. Though that's some jewel dropping right there in that book. You know, what's the You're a Badass to Jen Sincero's like line, like anything from Jen Sincero, I would definitely read her You're a Badass series, franchise, however you want to call it. Um, hmm. I'm stumped on this one. Like those were my though I think those are the ones that oh, you know what, another one, what's her name? Oh my god. Get Yours by Amy DuBois Burnett.
Oh, okay. I never read that one. Okay.
Get Yours. I think it's called Get Yours. I think I have it on my yeah, I think it's called Get Yours. Yeah, I would those are the ones that for me that sort of were and just kind of helped me in my 20s. I would say. And then anything, I was a big uh I was a student too. Like I was buying so many books, like anything that interests me. I was always trying to, from a lot of career, remember the Black Girl's Book for Success? Remember that?
Yes, one of my mother mentors, Marcia Hagan, wrote that. Yes.
That one too is a good one. And also, I was also a big like communicator, so I kind of leaned into those. So, Getting to Yes, those type of books. So I mean the list goes on, but the ones that I mentioned to you just recently and I ran down, those are sort of my favorites that I would I highly recommend, and lean into being an avid reader as well. I'm an avid reader, so whatever piques your interest, I tend to just whatever you're interested in, learn, read the book. The information is always out there. It's at our fingertips. It's really at our fingertips.
I love Nice Girls Don't Get the Corner Office.
Yeah.
What was big for me in my 20s was Young, Fabulous, and Broke by Susie Orman. That changed my. Susie Orman had another one called Woman in Money. That was one. Someone recommended the 7 Highly Habits of Effective People for me when I was in my 20s. That was really big. The Gifts of Imperfection by Brene Brown, I read when I was like 32. That changed when talk about confidence and like changing my relationship with myself, with those type of books. But I was, like I said, I was a student and I was always reading and thinking, all right, this book helps. So those type of books. And just like you said, think about what is appealing to you and read the books. Something that Drop the Ball by Tiffany Dufu. I read that. I love Tiffany's work. And the Young Black Book of Success. I forget.
The Young Black Girls Look for Success.
The Young Black Books of Success. Yeah. I know Marcia Hager was one of the authors, so that was good. So Rashana, we are coming to a close, but I just want to give you a chance to say, how can I listen? You dropped so many gems. I'm like, how can someone follow you online? Where are you? Where can the people follow you? And how can they support any of your endeavors?
Oh my gosh. Well, follow me on Instagram so I am at Shauna_Hooks. So feel free to follow me there. I might be still private, but just request me.
Got it.
Request. But yes, follow me on Instagram, and I try to share when I can.
Oh my God. I'm so blessed to have somebody like you in my life.
I'm blessed to have you, Maria. We go way back. I love it.
I am so blessed. So thank you so much, Rashana, for sharing all those like jewels and Lux jewels.
Lux lessons, right?
Lux lessons, yes, Lux lessons. And everyone listening, I hope that you took some away. And if you know someone in their 20s that this can benefit, share it with them, subscribe. And until next time, always be a woman who embraces her legacy. Thank you and good night.
Bye.
Thank you for tuning in to the Embrace Her Legacy podcast. If you enjoyed this podcast episode, please make sure to subscribe and visit embraceherlegacy.com to make a donation or sign up to become a part of our community of volunteers and supporters, the Embrace Her Legacy Collective. Make sure you follow us at Embrace Her Legacy to get daily inspiration and join our movement. Thank you for listening, and remember, you're enough, you're worthy, and you're a phenomenal woman who embraces her legacy.